So let's begin this double Z-fold card. I'm going to start by cutting my cardstock. This is Daffodil Delight. And I need to cut this at 4 1/4. I need 4 1/4 by 11, so it's basically bisecting a sheet of cardstock. I need to score that at 5 1/2. I love how this blade stays out of the way so I can score. And 2 3/4. 2 3/4. With the other half, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cut this to 3 1/2 inches wide. With a length of 9 3/4. I'm gonna go ahead and open up the arm and measure that to 9 3/4. I'm gonna score this one as well. Same places, 5 1/2 and 2 3/4. For the DSP, I'm using the fancy Flora DSP, which is a package of 6x6 sheets. They are to me, they're like impressionist paintings, which I love. They're just so pretty, and the colors just are so beautiful. So I love this, and of course they're double-sided, and you get coordinating papers on the other side. So pretty. I'm going to be using this pattern, which has your fresh freesia, your balmy blue, it has some orchid oasis in there, and the Daffodil Delight, which is going to really pop from that card base. So you're going to need 3 sheets of this to do this card. You're going to need 2 pieces, and you can just turn it any which way. There's not a right or wrong way for this DSP. Probably would look better if you did turn them different ways. So I need 2 pieces that are 4 by 2 1/2. So that was 4 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and do 2 1/2 and 2 1/2. I need a piece that's 5 1/4. By 4. And I also need one that's 3 1/4. By 2 1/2. So you do get some nice scraps. I hate to even call them scraps because there's some pretty large pieces there that you can use on other cards. These are the pieces that we're going to need for this particular card. We're also going to need some white. So just your basic white. You need a 4 by 3 1/4. And a 3 1/4 by 2 1/2. And then you'll also need a couple pieces of the white to stamp the flower. So those are all the pieces that we need to cut, unless you need to cut some to do your stamping. So I'm gonna go ahead and fold the card, because that kind of helps me see where I need each of the DSP pieces so I don't get confused. So this is actually going to be the back. So this is gonna fold this way. Turn that around. Use my bone folder. And then this will fold back this way. Okay. And on the thinner piece, this is actually gonna go here. So it's gonna fold this way. And this way. Check that to make sure that's right, and that's exactly how it will lay flat. So that does look how it will fold. Perfect. So on the large piece, the wider piece, we're going to have all DSP. So we're going to use 3 pieces of DSP. And yes, it would be easier to adhere these if I had left them flat and not folded them, but I always like to do that just to make sure I'm putting them in the right places. There's our back panel. And this front one, this is gonna have our white piece that we're gonna put our sentiment on. So we're gonna stamp that first. And then the middle is gonna have this DSP. So I'm gonna go ahead and adhere that. And then if you wanted to stamp a sentiment for the inside, I'm just gonna leave it blank. It's kind of a small area for your inside, and sometimes I just like to write my own thing, because I'm using kind of a generic sentiment on the front. So it leaves a little more room to write if you don't put an inside sentiment. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and prepare the front of the card. I'm going to get my mat for stamping because this is a clear photopolymer stamp. This is from Flowering Tulips. I'm using Just Thinking of You today. And this is in the annual catalog for 2022, 2023. And I'm gonna stamp that in black. Nice, looking good. Now, to do the flower, you know I love my Stamparatus. So I have my Stamparatus set up with the flower from, the big flower from the art gallery set. It's these two stamps. And I'm gonna be doing those in fresh freesia. So you see I have the main part of the flower on this panel, and I have the overlay on the one that's gonna flip this way. And you can use this in lots of different ways. Because these are photopolymer stamps, I am using the matte that comes with it. Just a regular piece of white. Gonna go right there. I'm going to take my stamp set to put underneath, because that makes a nice base. It's kind of a big stamp, so I'm using my whole stamp pad for this one and not the little minis that I like to use on smaller stamps. I'm just going to give that a stamp. Make sure it gets a good bit there. I'm gonna slide this over here, and I'm just gonna restamp it. So where this goes, it's gonna be a little bit darker of the fresh freesia color, which just gives a little bit of contrast to the flower. So that goes on. And you see it's just a little bit darker on that flower where that overlay goes. It's a really pretty look, really pretty. Okay, so you can see that. For the leaves, I'm using this stamp right here, and I'm using mint macaron. Which is a nice light color that will go nicely with that DSP. I tried it with a darker green. I used the Evening Evergreen. Didn't really like it. It was just too dark. So the mint macaron really gives it a nice look. Okay. And these are going to be die cut. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and die cut these two pieces, and I'll be right back. All right, so now we have our base, we have our flower that's gonna go on. I'm gonna go ahead and adhere this to the card, and this is gonna go on to the thinner part where we left that space. There. And now I'm actually gonna adhere this to our card base before I put the flower on. It's a little bit easier to get things pressed down. So once the card opens, you want it to lay flat. So the best way I have found to do this is to kind of line it up how you like it. And then this is what needs to adhere. So you want to make sure you don't put any adhesive back here. You want, I'm just going to kind of put my finger right there. And I'm going to go ahead and adhere. Okay. So this is going to go centered as I can get it. A bit too much of a perfectionist. Like that. Okay. Now, the other piece that gets adhered is this. So that's easy. Don't have to really watch because you want to adhere that entire flap. lay flat. So now, that's how it opens. And that's why it's called a double Z. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and adhere the flower, and I'm gonna glue the flower on. You could use dimensionals. Get my little pin here. I always keep a pin back here. This is kind of an older glue bottle. It's been using it for a while. There it is. And then I just stick that right in there. And it usually works like a charm. Yep, there we go. A little bit of glue here and there and everywhere. One dot does a lot. Okay. Make sure that's good. Yep, that's good. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and adhere the leaves down. And then put on the flower. Slip that a little bit underneath, give it a little dimension. Beautiful. That's just lovely. Just thinking of you today. And of course, you got to have some bling. So I'm using the opaque adhesive back gems that come in. I always write my colors on my packaging. These are fresh freesia, gorgeous grape, melon mambo, and of course white. So I'm gonna use the fresh freesia since that's the ink color that I used. Get my take your pick tool. And I think a nice big gem in this corner would look nice. And maybe a little one. Here, maybe a medium one, here. I just like threes. Sometimes I do twos, but I like threes. And there's our double Z fold card. And it does fit into an A2 envelope because it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 once you fold it. So, hope you enjoyed today's video. Happy crafting!